Sunday School Nation with Ken Jones. Please subscribe below.
It's Sunday School Nation. I'm your host, Ken Jones. Together, let's see what exciting adventure we'll find together with God's Word as we study international.
Sunday School Nation 2020 presents the International Uniform Sunday School lesson for January 12, 2020. Solomon's speech, 1 Kings 8:14 through 21.
Then the king turned around to the entire community of Israel standing before him and gave this blessing. Praise the Lord, the God of Israel, who has kept the promise he made to my father David. For he told my father, from the day I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have never chosen a city among any of the tribes of Israel as a place where a temple should be built to honor my name. But I have chosen David to be king over my people Israel. Then Solomon said, my father David wanted to build this temple to honor the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord told him, you wanted to build a temple to honor my name. Your intention is good, but you are not the one to do it. One of your sons will build the temple to honor me. And now the Lord has fulfilled the promise he made. For I have become king in my father's place, and now I sit on the throne of Israel, just as the Lord promised. I have built this temple to honor the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. And I have prepared a place there for the ark, which contains the covenant that the Lord made with our ancestors when he brought them out of Egypt.
Another empty promise. The store owner, Mr. Young, had promised to give the traditional Christmas bonuses. But then he told the employees that his family-owned store was losing money. Everyone believed him and worked extra hours to keep the store afloat. The yearly end of the season sale was great. When the store managers Joyce and Ian stepped forward and asked all the employees to gather around, as Ian began to speak, the joyous occasion became somber. He was trying to explain why there would be no bonuses. Joyce stepped forward and tried to further explain what was happening. Then someone shouted, Mr. Young promised us bonuses. Where are our bonuses? We sacrificed and made him, his family, and the company money. Mr. Young appeared and asked the upset employees to quiet down. It took a few moments, but they stopped shouting eventually. Mr. Young spoke. He and the accountant went back over the numbers. Although the bonuses would not be as large as he had planned, each employee would receive a bonus and a $100 gift card from the community grocery store. Mr. Young did indeed keep his promise. Question: what is your response when you are unable to keep a promise or when someone breaks a promise to you? How much do you trust or doubt God's promises? The people, places, and times of our lesson. The name of the Lord. In the ancient Near East, when an emissary came in the name of their king, they had all the power the king commanded. They were also to be treated with all the respect and dignity the king himself would enjoy. This is because the name of a person represents all their power and reputation. We speak even today of someone trying to preserve their good name. The name of the Lord, therefore, refers to all of God's power and greatness. To glory his name is to add to his reputation, as God is worthy of all honor and glory. He is rightfully offended when people do not respect his name, either in their words or action. To keep from using the name of the Lord in vain, that is, lightly, one must not only refrain from throwing around his personal, conventional name, Yahweh, without due respect, but one must also refrain from sullying his reputation through unrighteous action. A prelude of praise. The cloud of smoke is confirmation to Solomon that he is still in step with God and God's plan for the temple and God's people. This project was literally 2 generations in the making. Here he was looking at what was only a dream for his father David, who wanted to build a permanent dwelling place for the God of his ancestors. This was not a shabby house, but a house of worship beautifully adorned with silver and gold. Solomon was the man leading the charge, successfully managing the temple into existence even after 7 long years. The completion of the temple and confirmation of God's presence through the cloud could have led Solomon to begin the festivities with a sense of great pride. Instead, Solomon uses this moment to provide great praise. Solomon's posture at this moment of the completion of the temple is instructive for us. As we achieve major milestones in our lives, careers, or ministries, we too can be tempted to become prideful. We can look at the finished product of our efforts and become intoxicated by memories of our own efforts, ideas, and ingenuity. To be sure, taking pride in our work is not sinful, but becoming blind to God's role in our successes and opportunities is. Solomon recognizes that to have the opportunity to see through to the end of the project his father envisioned is a gift, an opportunity fulfilled through his leadership by the grace of God. For Solomon, the appropriate response is not to pat himself on the back or to praise his own efforts, but to praise the Lord God of Israel, which spake with his mouth unto David my father. Question. How do you resist the temptation to take credit for an accomplishment for which God should have been praised?
A proper perspective of the past. Maybe one of the most impressive things about Solomon's blessing and address to the people at the completion of the temple is his ability to see the current moment in light of history. Solomon is aware enough to understand that the work of completing the temple is the continuation and completion of a promise that God made to his father. While Solomon is the king who is allowed to complete this important work, this accomplishment could not be divorced from the promise of the past and from the history God had with his father David. Solomon remembers and repeats the desires of his own father and the conversations God had with David around the completion of the temple. This portion of the text is instructive in at least 2 ways. Solomon is able to see the work he does in completing the temple as a continuation of what God already began in the past. The work of the temple does not begin with him. Moreover, the text also implies that a proper perspective of the past is shaped through integrational conversation. The reader can assume that Solomon knows the intimate details of David's conversation with God about the temple because David made a point to share his history with his son, and his son remembered it. We too could do well to see the milestones we achieve in our own lives as the continuation of God's ongoing work through our personal, family, and human history. Question. In what ways can you see God's work in your life as a continuation of dreams and goals of your ancestors and families?
A promise-keeping God. Solomon concludes the initial address to the people of Israel by affirming that God is a promise keeper. Solomon says, "The Lord has fulfilled the promise he made." He recounts the two promises that God made to David that were now manifested for all to see. God promised that Solomon would succeed his father David and that Solomon would build the temple for the name of the Lord. Solomon pauses to remind the people that what God said is what they now see. Solomon's wisdom is on display as he intentionally positions the Ark of the Covenant, the sign of God's presence that would always dwell at the center of the promised temple. It is a reminder that the proper response to a promise-keeping God is to always make room and preparations to ensure that God is properly honored and at the center of what we do. Question: what considerations have you made to ensure that God remains in a central position in your life following the realization of fulfilled promises God made to you? Sunday School Nation with Ken Jones. Please subscribe below.